How's everybody doing today? Can you hear me? Can they hear me? Okay. I just want to start by saying thank you. Thank you to the mayor, to Washington, D.C., to everybody that took place in my journey in life. It was hard because I suffered, deaths and losing people that were helping me, and I had to do it alone with 3 kids. Where I stayed, it was more of a home, and family members were the employees. I didn't feel like they were getting a paycheck to help me. I feel like they were genuinely helping me, like aunties and moms and grandmoms and uncles. And I just want to, say thank you again. And for the other centers that's coming, to the people that's going to be in them, you are going to be comfortable. It's home, to your new home. And I just want to thank again, because that's what was my favorite word at the center. Thank you. And I just want to say thank you again. I want to introduce the lady that all of us people that, was at the center and that's going to be coming to the center. We really, really appreciate you. And I just want to introduce you to everybody. Mayor Bowser. Thank you again.
Thank you. Thank you for those words.
Thank you.
Hi, guys. Well, good afternoon, everybody. And welcome to the Sterling. And we are very proud and excited to welcome you to this new center. As you heard, we have been focused for the last several years on making sure that we build dignified short-term family housing for DC families who are experiencing emergencies. We know if they have a safe place where they can regroup and start getting all of the things in their life in order so their children can be successful at school, they can work on health-related matters, educational matters, as well as employment. And that's what dignified short-term family housing has allowed. I want to thank Ward 5 Councilmember Kenya McDuffie. Give him a big round of applause for his leadership and support. I also want to acknowledge members of my Health and Human Services team who have been very focused, not just on how we locate short-term family housing facilities across all 8 wards, but also how we make sure we have the proper programming and supports, and that we are supporting families so that they can maintain safe and affordable housing and not enter our homeless services system at all. So I want to acknowledge our Deputy Mayor Wayne Turnage, our Director of Health and Human Services, Laura Zeilinger, and her team at DHS. Give DHS a big round of applause. Christy Greenwald, the Director of our Interagency Council on Homelessness. Give Christy Greenwald a big round of applause. I want to acknowledge our Ward 5 Community Advisory Team, who was co-chaired by Henry McKembe. Please give him a big round of applause as well. And I want to just really acknowledge to all of our community members who have worked hand in hand with the government throughout this process to ensure that we can deliver a center that is going to support families on their next steps, but also enhance our community. So let's hear it for Ward 5. I also want to acknowledge Henry for going to the BZA on our behalf. We made the decision to present all of our short-term family housing facilities to the Board of Zoning Adjustment together. And we made that decision because this wasn't just an issue for this street or that street or the other street. Solving our homelessness problem in the district is an issue for the entire city. And therefore, it was a mayoral priority that was presented to the Board of Zoning Adjustment as such. And so I want to thank our legal team for that as well. Thank you, Meredith. Give them a big round of applause. So each time we visit one of our new centers, we should all be reminded that families who are coming here to get back on their feet are our neighbors, our students, our friends, and they may be our family members. They did not descend. They are us. And we should make it a point in a city as prosperous as ours to make sure that people get a second chance and a fresh start. When we set out to end homelessness in Washington, D.C., we did so knowing that it would take a citywide solution to solve a citywide challenge, and that's what we've put together. Since implementing our plan, we've driven down family homelessness in Washington, D.C. by 45%. And we've driven down overall homelessness by 22%. We've housed over 4,600 families and 4,800 single adults, and we're not letting up. In just the past year, we closed DC General. You told me with a very clear voice when I was running for mayor several years ago now, that in a city as prosperous as ours, we could do better by our families and children. An old hospital was no place for families to live, especially when they were at their most vulnerable. We expanded the Landlord Partnership Fund, which encourages property owners all across D.C. to work with us, because one thing that is for sure, that once a family has been stabilized in one of our short-term family housing facilities, they need an affordable home to move to. And so we want to work with landlords to let them know that the district will be their partner if they have quality housing to rent to one of our families. We have opened 4 new short-term family housing sites, and today makes the 5th, and we're very proud of that. We have also opened a fantastic and much-needed new downtown day services center, a place where residents experiencing homelessness can rest, do laundry, connect to services, and more. In short, we've been very busy, and the plan is working. It's effective, and there's more to do. The upcoming budget, for example, and I want to thank Councilmember McDuffie and his colleagues for their support of these initiatives. This budget goes into effect on October the 1st. It includes $37 million to build on these efforts, including $20 million to ensure that our new facilities have the resources and tools that they need to be successful. And it also includes a much-needed investment in Ward 8 to transform a emergency housing facility for men that is in much need of a transformation. So again, I want to thank everyone who has helped get us to this point. I want to thank our families and thank you in advance for welcoming families who come to the Sterling to stabilize their lives, to give their children the opportunities that every child in D.C. deserves. So thank you very much for being here today, and I want to acknowledge Councilmember Kenyon McDuffie.
Good evening. I want to thank everybody for being here this evening, and I also want to give a special thanks to Mayor Muriel Bowser, who has made it a priority in her administration to make homelessness rare, brief, and non-recurrent for the residents who unfortunately have to experience it in their lifetimes. Let's give her a round of applause for all the work that she's done. And thank you, Ms. James, for being here and having your family here. I want to thank Laura Zeilinger, the Director of the Department of Human Services, as well as Keith Anderson. I also want to thank the folks who are advisory neighborhood commissioners in Ward 5, in particular in 5B. We have Commissioner McKimbe, who is behind me. Raise your hand if you're a member of 5B, please. I want everybody to take a moment to look at who these folks are because they really, really, really poured themselves into this process and worked with myself and worked with Mayor Bowser and the Department of Human Services to get us to this point. So thank you to the Advisory Neighborhood Commissioners and our Civic Association leadership. Today's not just a ribbon cutting or the opening of a new facility. Today we welcome new families to Brooklyn and to Rhode Island Avenue, and that's very important. This ribbon cutting was really a long time in the making. And to be candid, the road wasn't always smooth. But at the end of the day, here we are about to cut the ribbon on the Sterling, because I think more people than not recognize how important it is to come to the aid and to support families that are vulnerable, families who are experiencing some of the most challenging times in their lives because of the lack of housing affordability in the District of Columbia. And so I want to thank those residents who have welcomed them with open arms. Please. And it's not just the residents here in Woodridge or the residents in Brookland. It's residents from across Ward 5 in the district who have been to the meetings that we held to talk about the importance of this facility, to make sure that we establish a facility right here in Ward 5 where the families who will be living here will have access to a new quality library, where they're going to have access to a park, where they're going to have access to a recreation center not too far from here. Those are important amenities that every family wants to have in the District of Columbia. And it's so important that our families who are here will have that benefit as well. I want to acknowledge everybody who's really poured their hearts and souls into this process, and I want to invite all our new neighbors, including Ms. James, to Ward 5 Day that we're going to have right across the street on September 14th, because at the end of the day, Ward 5 always comes together. We always look out for each other. And while we don't want families to have to spend too much time in this facility or other short-term family housing, we also want to make sure that they are supported while they're here. And that is key. So thank you, Laura. Thank you, Mayor Bowser. And thank you for everybody for making today possible.
So shortly, we're going to hear from two of our team members who have been very key to getting us to this point. First, Laura Zeilinger, who I mentioned leads our Human Services Department, but also Director Keith Anderson, who is having a very busy week. The Department of General Services is the construction arm of D.C. government, and they're very focused right now on getting schools open, but I'm glad to see that you're also been focused on short-term family housing. And after that, we will hear from Henri Makembe, representing the community in the Ward 5 Short-Term Family Housing Advisory Committee. Laura.
Thank you, Mayor. So good evening, everyone. I want to just welcome all of you to the Sterling and share with you just how absolutely excited I am to be with you today at the opening of our 5th short-term family housing site. It has been absolutely an exciting journey to watch these buildings go from concepts of what does it look like to make a temporary space welcoming, dignified, supportive, and able to really address the multiple needs that families who experience homelessness in our community have, and also be efficient and effective part of our homeless services continuum. And watching it go from drawings to a place as beautiful as this is something that has been absolutely one of the highlights of my career, and makes me grateful every single day to be part of this administration and working for leadership from our mayor and from the council willing to invest in our families. So I just want to acknowledge that we are the envy of the cities all around the country that are struggling with homelessness and have nowhere near the resources devoted to serve families properly. I also had the joy today of just walking through the first floor with Miss James and her children, who, and Miss James may have shared with you that she stayed at the Triumph in the Ward 8. So her experience of our continuum and is different than families we have heard from as we've opened other sites, because she did not go to DC General, did not stay at a place that was retrofitted to try to meet the needs, but her entire experience was what we are creating. And she shared with me that she had all of her needs met, that she was treated like family. And that's what, when we invest in small community-based settings where service providers are able to know the name of everybody who's there, build connection, then our system works and families are able to get what they need to be able to move forward into housing, as Ms. James has with her 3 children. And so I just want to congratulate her. It is never an easy thing to share your experience, especially some of the most difficult experiences and traumatic experiences of which homelessness can be. But doing so, I think, really helps us as a community know remind us why we do this work, and your generosity in sharing your story is one that I want to acknowledge and appreciate. Thank you. I would also, again, just like to note that how excited we are about the partnership here of our service provider. The National Center for Children and Families, headed up by Dr. Chapman, who is here with us today, will be operating this site. We're in partnership with DHS. They were our pioneers, as they are also operating our program at the Kennedy in Ward 4. And I'm happy to say at the Kennedy and our other short-term family housing programs, the length of time that families are experiencing homelessness is on average less than 90 days, which was our goal. And so I think one of the things that we saw as we walked through was, this is beautiful. Who wouldn't want to stay, and how scary it can be to make that transition from shelter out into the community. Will we be able to continue to serve the needs of the next family and help families transition to permanency fast enough in these sites? But what we're seeing is we're proving our hypothesis right. We know families want what all of us want, which is a safe place that is their own. They want to be able to go home, turn the key in the door, and have their own place. And that what it takes to get there and to transition out of homelessness is so much better supported in programs like this. So I'm not going to talk much longer because I cannot wait for you to actually see it. It is absolutely beautiful. The council member mentioned the park and the library in this community, and when you go onto the second floor, there's some beautiful art that actually shows those beautiful sites. So this, throughout, you really feel the fabric of the neighborhood, and it is really a wonderful thing. I would be remiss not to acknowledge the phenomenal team at the Department of Human Services. I cannot name everybody who has been a part of it, but I will just note the work being done by our FSA administrator, Tamitha Davis-Ramah, our program manager for DHS Short-Term Family Housing, Jenna Savasco, Lisa Franklin, who heads up our facilities team, as well as Dwayne Gentry, who's really been in partnership with DGS all the way, Tanya Mortensen, I see in the back, who's works on all of our contracts, and there's many more people, and you'll forgive me for not naming you, but I see you. And I just want to say that when I walked through here last week to kind of see if we were ready, I literally was welling up with tears at just how, at the tremendous difference in what we've been able to produce, which that we would not have done without our partners at the Department of General Services. The impeccable job, the attention to detail comes through, and really the sense of space here. And again, I cannot wait for you to see it. So with that, I will turn it over to my colleague, Director Anderson.
Thank you, Director Zeilinger, and good evening, Ward 5. This is indeed a very busy week for the Department of General Services as we prepare for almost 50,000 students to return to school on Monday. But I couldn't think of a better place to be right now than to cut the ribbon on the Sterling so that we can ensure that families most in need have a place to call home. And so with that, I want to express my deepest appreciation to Mayor Muriel Bowser, Ward 4 Councilmember Kenyon McDuffie, members of the Ward 5 Short-Term Family Housing Advisory Team, ANC 5B03 Commissioners, and the Brooklyn Civic Association. I also want to recognize and thank members of our project team. Yes, give them a round of applause. I also want to recognize and thank members of our project team, starting with Caramonte Construction, our general contractor. Please give them a round of applause. R. McGee and Associates, the architect on this beautiful project. DGS project managers Jeff Licklider and Jeremy Register. And behind me, Paul Blackman Jr., Deputy Director for Capital Construction. Let me just say, at DGS, we are fully committed to providing opportunities to district residents and CBE contractors. I am proud to report that 50% of all the work completed on this project was performed by local CBE contractors here in the District of Columbia, which included both the general contractor team, Caramonte Contractor, who was responsible for the on-site construction, and R. McGee and Associates, the architect, who was responsible for the design of this beautiful site. Also, there were 143 D.C. residents who worked on this project, 23 coming from Ward 5. This is a great moment for DGS, the Ward 5 community, and the residents who will use this short-term facility as a stepping stone to improving their lives, and I want to thank you for joining us today. Now, I'll turn it over to the advisory team co-chair, Mr. Henry McKimbe.
Thank you all for being here, and welcome to ANC 5B03. I am standing here in front of you today speaking, but I would like to say that all the members of the advisory team were really influential and key for the Sterling to come open. And we've been having meetings at the library every month. And so we're going to miss those meetings. We're going to miss Jeff and Jackie coming with nice presentation and PowerPoints. Just be brief here. I couldn't be more excited to have the Sterling open throughout this process. It wasn't smooth, as the council member mentioned. But we've received tons of letters from the community supporting the center and being very excited about the folks coming in. So we really like welcoming Ms. James and people who are going to come through here. And to show how excited we are going to have welcoming packets for the family coming here, right? So that's our neighborhood stepping up. So if you want to welcome these families, feel free to email myself. I'll come pick up the stuff from you guys. I'll bring it to Ward 5 Day, and then we'll make sure that the family coming here have something, a note of welcome from resident welcoming them to our neighborhood. I would like to end by saying a special personal thank you to Amber Harding, who's been really educating me about the issues of homelessness in D.C. throughout this process and being a really big advocate for the families who are going to be here at the Sterling. And lastly, I will end with thanking my wife for allowing me and making the time to come to all of the meetings that I have to come to as an ANC commissioner. So with that said, I'm very excited to have you all here, and let's have a look inside.
Thank you so much, Commissioner. A big thanks to the Commissioner. We really asked a lot of our co-chairs to be partners with us in leading community discussion and in shaping agreements and initiatives that the neighborhood would engage in with the Sterling. So we're going to cut the ribbon, take a quick tour, and I will be available for questions after a quick tour.
I don't know. Oh, then she just want to cut it off. Okay. Yeah, then you could pay for it.
Okay, everybody, on the count of 3, the Sterling. All right. 2, 3.